What's up, YouTube family? Welcome back to the channel. I'm going to walk you through what we do on a haircut. So I'm cutting my own hair. If you've got really curly hair, if you're a black dude, if you are a black woman, if you got really curly hair and you're not black, this is going to help you out. So let me know what questions you have down in the comments. But for now, I'm going to walk you through in order how I cut my own hair when I do it. So we're gonna go from this baby fro to a skin fade. So we're gonna cut this all the way down to a little bit lower than wavelength, and we're gonna do a drop fade. It's gonna be a straight drop, not like a curved drop fade. And I'll show you exactly how we're gonna do it. And we're starting right here, putting that first bald line in. So we got the clipper maybe 3/4 of the way closed. So this is not all the way bald. Do not close the clipper all the way out, because then you will not have space to put in a bald line or go any lower. So I got this clipper most of the way closed, but not closed. If you see, that's not making a super bald line, but we really want to get this guideline in, so we know exactly where we want the fade to start. Don't be afraid to hold your ear all the way down and all the way out of the way so you don't nick the corner of it. It's super annoying. You don't want to do it to clients. You don't want to do it to yourself. I promise I've probably nicked everything I could on my face and head at one point. I like to nick myself, not the clients, so I try and see what I can do on myself, what I can learn. But yeah, keep those ears safe. Now we're just picking this out to make sure that it won't get caught up when we cut this down to length right here. Watch. I'm using my number 2 guard right here to play it safe. So if we cut something against the grain with the number 2, with the thickness of my hair, it's gonna be okay. So I want to knock this down to length, but my hair's not trained right now. It's been in an afro. It doesn't know what wave pattern we want. So I'm cutting this down the way that I'm planning to brush it. And up here around the crown, I don't have to be as careful as I would if I had a 1 guard or a 0 guard on there, because it's high enough to leave yourself room for error. So that's what we want to do when we're cutting our own hair, is leave enough room for error. So if you mess up a little bit, your haircut's not cooked, you're not done. You still got time, you still got space to fix your haircut. So we're using this mirror. Look right here in the back. So the most important part of this piece of the haircut doing the back is being able to know how to use your mirror. So use your offhand. I'm using my left hand, and you always see my eyeball. You usually see one of my eyeballs looking straight into the mirror. So the mirror is really close to where the camera is, so I can see that. And then I'm just using my dominant hand to maneuver the clipper. So you'll have to get used to seeing what direction the clipper goes in the mirror compared to the way it would go in front of you. So it's just mirrored, kind of like backing up a car. It's the same exact thing, and once your hand gets used to it, you'll be really good to go. So once you get past the point where you're using the mirror, I am rubbing this down with my hand. So I'm going with the grain, and a lot of the time I'm feeling the hair to see if there's any spots that are sticking up. So I'm not even really looking at them a lot of the time, knowing where my wave pattern goes. I'm just feeling around, combing those around. So see that spot that's sticking up, so we can knock it down. So you feel it, your hair feels funny, you got a big thick patch sticking up, cut it down with the grain. It's not extremely difficult. Like, it doesn't have to be a complicated thing to do a haircut. So we got the zero guard. We're using the zero guard to create our fading zone. So we're cutting it with the grain to keep enough space for the area we want to fade before we try and make it perfect. So as you can see, that's the part that's going to go from short to long, long to short, light to dark, dark to light for your fade. So we're using that, and we're finally starting. But before we do that, I'm going to clean up this line of demarcation. So line of demarcation, that's just our bald line, the formal term for it. So we're going to straighten that out, make sure we're not making a crooked fade. I hope y'all didn't think we were going to leave that crooked for my haircut, number one, and also for a video. So straightening this line out, and then we're going to go ahead and place the fade exactly where we want it. Y'all tell me, does this thing look straight? It looked pretty straight in the mirror to me. I'm making sure that it's as close to perfect as I can be. It's a little bit different cutting your own hair. You can't get as close to look at it. You still gotta have whatever distance from your eyeball to the little mirror, and then that distance from the little mirror to the big mirror, and then the distance from the big mirror to the back of your head. So you can't really get as close as if you were cutting somebody else's hair, but you can still see and feel what you need to be doing. So now we've switched over. I've got this clipper all the way open, and that fading zone that we started making with the zero guard, we're starting to cut that down with the clipper all the way open. So this is a master, so it opens to a 1, and we're cutting that down, and now combing out all of the big bulky patches, so we can go over that stuff a little bit later. So what I'm about to do is knock down the front ridge of this haircut, just so that it flows when I brush it down. I don't want to have that little flap sticking up in the front, making my haircut look silly. So I want this all to flow into my forehead, especially for when I edge it up. I don't like to have a poofy look on the hairline. And the third thing is that will also make the haircut, the edge up, the hairline last longer by having that front part a little bit shorter. It takes it longer to grow back when it's a little bit shorter. So keep your clients happier longer, keep your haircut lasting longer. Just cut that front part down a little bit lower. Not low enough to like notice, but low enough. After that, we'll pull out our hitters or whatever trimmers you prefer to use and get a really rough outline of your edge up. so it doesn't have to be extremely rough, but you do want to know where your bars are going to be before you set in the rest of the fade, just to make sure that it's even, and then we can go back and detail it once we got the outline. So now you'll kind of see what the haircut's going to look like. Since we got the outline, we got everything knocked down. So what, 10 minutes in, that's what it'll look like. So you'll see you got an outline of the haircut, and the rest of this you can take your time and just make sure that it's as blendy as you would like it to be. Here's another slight self-cut hack. Use a towel. Don't try to use a neck duster when you're cutting your own hair. The towel is a lot quicker. You don't really have to worry about towel. As long as your skin is dry, the towel will just knock those hairs right off. Yeah, you'll have to clean the towel later, but it gets rid of all the itchy stuff really quick and doesn't leave a bunch of hairs behind. So use a towel and save some time. So we got the zero guard back out. So remember how we detailed the line of demarcation, that bald line? Now we're detailing the top part. So we're detailing where we want the fade to end. So where we want it to transition back into the really long hair at the top, or the longest part. So using that zero guard just to go ahead and do that as well. The reason I'm cutting a lot of this with the grain is so that as a beginner, you won't have to worry so much about moving the fade up. As you'll see right here, now that you've got a boundary, you can go about halfway up in between the bald line and the part where we started to use the zero guard. So I don't want you to go in and start trying to fade up before you blend everything down. So down like towards the floor, before you use the very corner to just inch this thing up. So you're just gonna take these couple lines out, and then you're just going to inch and inch this up and at an angle towards the front of your hair. So take your time with this if you want it to look right, because as soon as you start to rush, you are a lot more likely to mess up your hair. So inch this part up, use the corners, and just continue to work those two sections together. And then you go up a little bit. Once you get, between that halfway point, once you get 3/4 of the way up, we'll move it up to a 1 guard. And then we'll take the guard off. So just kind of watch this part and see what we're doing here. So this transition part, like right above my ear and right behind my ear, is really, so you'll see it on this side too, one of the most difficult parts to work through, just because it's on a curve. It's on two curves, right? So it's on the curve that's going backwards, and it's on the curve that's going up and down on your occipital lobe on the side of your head. Maybe it's just because mine's lumpy. Hopefully yours isn't as lumpy as mine. But with that, we got to make sure that we're taking our time and going across kind of at a diagonal between two lumpy sections. So we're just going to work those to make it look and contour towards the side of my head. So I'm doing the same thing. I got this clipper all the way open, picking up those hairs and then turning it back over to blend them down, just so that I know I'm working through the same section, kind of texturizing through, which means taking like vertical angled sections out of it to make sure that we're not moving it up, but we're making it look blurry. So I'm gonna do that one more time. So you'll see this clipper's all the way open. That means we're going through that bottom quarter of the fading zone. And we don't ever want to move our fading zone around. Put the 0 back on so we can go back through the top quarter and that half. But really just making sure that we're not moving this up and we're taking our time. So again, just check this out. As we get through the back, you still see us using that one eye looking in the mirror. I didn't know we were going to turn around and look at it like that, but yeah, using the corner of that clipper just to detail that. We got that all the way closed up here to clean up the details that we didn't get into before. The biggest thing I want to encourage you to do is to take your time. Like, regardless of what you get from this video, the biggest thing I want you to get is that you can do it, number one, and number two, just take your time. So I'm really keeping these sections really tight. This is sped up and it even looks like I'm going slow. So I'm going to reach all the way over with my right hand and make sure I can get the same smoothing down and flicking out effect, so we're not taking any chunks out of this thing. That's the last thing we want to do is take a chunk out. So just make sure taking your time, smoothing this down bit by bit, piece by piece, and just paying attention. So it'll take a little bit of patience, but you'll save a lot. You might learn how to cut hair. You might want to start doing it for other people. You never know. You might become a barber by learning how to cut your hair. So now I got this clipper about halfway open, and we are really just working the bottom part of this line. So with that thing halfway open, you can see it taking out some of that line, and with the grain you can see it just smoothing down some of the bulk. So that's what we're gonna do to make this fade come together. We're just gonna smooth the bulk down, and then we're gonna move whatever line out only within the fading zone. So when you close that clipper up a little bit, it smooths and blends some of that bulk in. So it's like you're creating a bump and then you're smoothing it out. So you're fading up and then blending down to remove that bump to keep this really tight. And we're just gonna work that over and over again until it's as blurry and as blendy as you want it to be. So taking your time, I know I've said it 1,000 times in this video, is going to be key for cutting your own hair, especially if it's one of the first few times that you've done it. So you got this. Take your time, brush it down, smooth it down, and then move up any of those dark spots. We want to have that trimmer parallel with your nose and then aiming it directly at the top corner. So once you get that parallel with your nose, you want to aim the top part of the trimmer to the top part of that corner and make sure that you are just setting it down and moving it in. So do not flare the bottom out of your bars unless you want it to look like a really old person. Like I'm just gonna say it. So their bars, they flare out, and that's how you know it's like, okay, who's a little bit older. We gotta give them like a respectable angle on the bars. So the bars mean a lot. The edge up means a lot. You can communicate a lot by the angle of the bars. Another thing I don't talk about too often, because I usually do like more basic tutorials, but don't be afraid to stretch the skin when you're using your trimmers too. Like, you don't have to only be using a razor to stretch the skin, like especially for making fades look blurrier. Go ahead, put your thumb on the bottom part of their hair, pull it down to create more space. Like, you got hairs, right, sitting on a patch of skin, so when you spread that patch of skin out, you got more room to work. It's like unfolding a blanket, or like pulling the blanket tight so that you can pick up all the little stuff on it. Like, use your resources. You don't have to just like magically have the clippers hover over. So here's a different clipper. It's got smaller teeth, so I can do more of that blending technique we were talking about, where we're cutting down with the grain. So we're blending it down and then flipping it over to use a corner of it to detail this fade. So this one's the Oster. It's fast feed. It's got smaller teeth, which means you have more hold. So you got more control over what you can do with the hair, and it fits the same guards as the Andis Master, just for the record. So more hold means you got more grip, right? So it's tighter. Between the two teeth is tighter. So if you think of like a pick, like an afro pick, it's gonna be loose hold. You can get through a big chunk of stuff. But if you got like a really tiny lice comb, or if you got like one of those little bitty barber combs, you got more control over the hairs. Like, you can grab 2 or 3 hairs and then move those exactly where you want them to cut them. Same thing with the clipper blade, right? So there's more teeth, so that means they got more control. So I can take the corner of that clipper and grab 1 or 2 hairs and just cut those, instead of grabbing a big patch of hair and having to like guess what I'm doing. So it's like using a really small tool, really small pencil, where you can grab just what you want with a finer tooth comb, finer tooth blade. I had to lean in to get that design in, so it was not in frame. I had to get really close to the mirror and just make sure that I dropped the trimmer directly on there and that it was straight. So right now I'm just using that clipper to clean that out and make sure it's not bulky in between the part. But that's what I was doing. So I had to lean in, make sure that thing was straight. Just set the trimmer down exactly where you want it to cut, and make sure you don't move it around, because if you wiggle it around, it'll make that part really wide. Alright, so I'm going to do some barber math gang signs on my forehead to make sure that my eyebrows and my bars are aligned correctly compared to where I want to place my fade. And then with that small fine tooth clipper again, I'm just going to go over this part to make sure it blends in. So don't worry, you can do it. With this part, we're just detailing again, making sure that that looks like it actually transitions here in the back and is not just going from dark to light. So we wanted to keep this one pretty simple. This is my favorite haircut to do on myself, so I'll show you how to do it. I did this one with a Walmart clipper too, and I'm pretty sure I got the footage of it, but I did it with these just so you know you could see what it looks like with a professional clipper. But I did it with like a beard trimmer too. I mean, it took about the same amount of time, and as long as you take your time with it, you can achieve any haircut you want. Like, we use professional tools to save us time cutting people's hair who need to get in and out. Like, we don't want to take 2 hours if we can do it in 30 minutes. Like, we want to keep you guys as happy as possible too. So after you like where your fade is, whip out that handy dandy towel, spin around one time for the one time, and then if you want to, just clean that last part out with a razor. It doesn't have to be a straight razor. It could be a bic, it could be a, whatever razor you got, but just make sure you're doing that with the grain moving down towards your eyebrow. So take your time with everything. And this is really the end of the video, man. I appreciate you watching. I hope this helps with something. Go ahead and please subscribe. We're doing this full time. This is our livelihood. And let us know what other videos you want to see, and we'll make sure we get them to you. Peace.